Hello, Jaq. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you here, and with your beautiful artwork behind you. It looks fabulous behind you.
Of course.
That's fabulous. I just want to start by mentioning, so people have an idea, how we know each other, because we met each other at an art residency in Iceland, the NES art residency. It's a wonderful way to meet fellow artists. And I know that you've done quite a number of residencies yourself, haven't you?
Actually, the NES one was my first one.
Ah, okay, yes.
And then the second one was about 2 weeks ago in Murwillumbah at the M Arts Precinct.
That went really well, didn't it? Because I think you sold some work, and I saw some photos of it, that your artwork was beautifully vibrant and very well received there. So congratulations.
Yeah, it was excellent.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
All right, Jaq, tell us a little bit about your journey becoming an artist. Where did it all begin?
Okay, so I have previously done a Bachelor's of Design in Architecture and also completed my Master's. So I think going through and having to do a lot of things by hand sort of was the beginning of where it all started, but I obviously didn't really have any direction and didn't think that I would end up in the position that I am in now.
Funny how life can lead you sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And at the time, I had been studying a architectural theory by Peter Eisenman on the autonomy of architecture. And so the autonomy of architecture, to me, from my understanding, was that he would set up a 3x3 grid and then just place items within it to create his architecture in space.
Ah.
And so what I got from that was being able to create autonomous art through collaging, and also the just being able to cut and segregate landscapes together to basically create these collages.
Well, we're going to show your artwork whilst we talk as well, so people watching will also see and understand your style as well. And you've been influenced by the Brutalist movement too, haven't you, of architecture within your style of art? Am I right in saying that?
I would say a little bit, yeah, just a lot of hard edges and strong leading lines. So
yeah,
nice and simple.
Yeah, well, simple to a degree, but I think that it's deceptive to say it's simple, because there's a lot of thought that goes into design. I mean, anybody can do hard edges and lines, but to make it sort of work and speak as an artwork is a different matter. So it's a deceptive word, that word, simple. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So have you used that sort of autonomous theory with your architecture as well as your art?
Definitely not. So I think the road of architecture is a lot longer.
Is it?
Yeah, to get to the point where I'd like to be at this point in stage.
So where would you like to be with your architecture?
She's probably like the world's best.
Why not? Absolutely, go for it. I back you on that 100%.
Thank you. No, there's just so much theory, and basically there is a lot to architecture at the end of the day. So, and getting something to be structurally sound is a whole nother thing to consider as well.
Well, it probably gets in the way of the art of it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit, but it all sort of comes together, just like the creating process, from hand drawing sketches and hand building models right through to putting in a computer and getting it constructed. So the art to it, which is kind of nice, and that's sort of what I also took into doing collages and making art, because everything's hand cut or hand painted.
Yeah, which is fantastic, because it really gives it that, well, it's quite intimate, isn't it? That you're actually, every single bit is hand created and cut to be placed together, which is the nature of collage, of course. So do you do any, animals, people, flowers, fruit, anything else, or is it always landscape that you're drawn to?
Landscape's probably my biggest inspiration. So, and I think also people are able to have a certain level of attachment to a landscape as well. So it does connect with a lot of people as well.
So when you're choosing a landscape to do, what do you look for in it? Is it connected to place that, you know, you have a personal affinity with, or is it just more abstract than that?
Definitely places with personal affinity, but also I look at things such as leading lines and how many segments and anything that's sort of stands out in that landscape as well. I
And there's
try and break it down into those
to those
smaller
elements.
bits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. And does it stop becoming a landscape after a while and become a design, or is it always still in your mind a landscape?
it's still in my mind a landscape.
Yeah, okay. And your colours, where do the colours come from? There's a lot of vibrancy in your colours, which I love.
Thank you. So the colors come from having to work with colored paper. There's only a
Ah,
selected spectrum of colors. When I was in Amsterdam, there was a shop that was completely dedicated to colored paper. So, and it had almost every color you could possibly imagine.
you must have been in heaven when you went into that shop.
Yeah, absolutely. I just threw my money everywhere and said,
I bet you did.
let me have it.
Yeah, okay. Is there a type of paper that you love working with?
At the moment, I've been using poster board, which is around 300 GSM.
Yes,
And so
nice and thick.
it's 510 by 635, but it also, once it's all glued up and finished, it really gives like a definition of the line, which is really
Ah,
nice.
so
So the thicker the paper, the better.
like a thin relief sculpture almost.
Yeah,
But you've
for
been
sure.
dabbling in oils as well recently, I hear, and
Yeah.
working with texture and things like that. So how have you found that?
uh, I really like it. It's definitely different to what I've sort of have been working with before. And also oils is a completely new game to me, but I really enjoy using a palette knife because
Yeah.
cleaning my brushes is not my
Uh,
favorite task.
it's the worst, isn't it? I have a little system where I put blue tack around a jar and I just let them sit overnight rather than clean them. But shh, don't tell anyone because it's not what you're meant to do, I'm quite sure. So do you reckon that when you dabble with those different materials that impacts your style? Because I mean, I can't imagine that you're getting as defined an edge when you're working with oils, for example.
It surprisingly does have a quite a defined edge.
Ah, interesting.
But usually what happens is because the oil paint has been built up, I would let it sit for about a week for it to dry out. And then that way I can run the palette knife along the edge to create my next color,
Ah,
so that
fantastic.
it does create a really nice hard edge between the two. But it also, they kind of butt together and sort of come up a little bit.
So, can you remember back in your early days of being a young lad, anything that was said to you that you felt influenced you to say, "Hey, I would like to do art"? Any sort of teacher that gave you some advice or something that stands out in your mind?
Oh, that's a very good question. In school, I did have really great art teachers. So I do highly commend them for the time that they put in, especially with us as students. And there was a few kids there's definitely a lot of my friends I find very inspirational in that sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I did not see myself going down this path.
So it's funny how you can just fall into things, isn't it? So it just sort of
Yeah.
happens to you. Is there a time when you sort of said, because I know for myself that there was a time when I felt that I gave myself permission to say, I'm an artist. Did you ever sort of get a sense of that at any stage?
Well, after my first show in March last year,
Yeah.
with my friends who run a show called MacRae, they put me in the show as my first show, and it actually went quite successful. So, and
Yay.
that's how I ended up buying my tickets to travel around Europe and have a pretty fun time and get to meet yourself. So that was
Yes.
kind of when I was like, all right, well,
Worthwhile trip.
worthwhile trip. If I did it once, then maybe I can keep going. So I may as well call myself an artist.
So it's official, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if you were to have something that you would say to any young people out there, because this is also going to be seen by some artists that teach kids, What would
Yep.
your advice be to them, do you reckon, in terms of starting out in a creative world?
Starting out would be just continue to experiment and have fun. Like
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong, and once you start with something, it's going to take you down a really long path of different things, and you'd never know where you're going to end up with.
Yeah, fantastic. And so what's next for you then? Just to continue exploring, you know, with where you're at with the oils, or have you got new ideas, you know, in the making?
Keep exploring with ideas, and I definitely want to keep going and testing out and creating textures.
Yeah.
I'll keep doing landscapes because I love doing landscapes. It's very meditative, just going and filling in these spaces.
Yeah, fantastic.
But there is a lot of things that I do want to try myself as well. So, and it's, yeah, like I said, it's going to be a lot of textures and oil paints and different materials.
Fantastic. And for those people in Melbourne, you've got an exhibition coming up next year in Brunswick, coronavirus willing, of course. We don't know where we're going to be at that stage, but we hope that everything will still go ahead. So we will also include the details of that for people to see. So Jaq, can I say thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your art and your knowledge and your suggestions, advice, etc. It's been absolutely delightful to see you.
No worries. Thank you, Jaq. I really appreciate it. And
All right.
Catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care. Another residency we'll have to do.
Yes, sounds good.